He would become the 35th President of the United States. But on August 2, 1943, Lieutenant John F. Kennedy was just a young officer trying to keep his crew alive after a Japanese destroyer sliced his boat in two. This is one of the most extraordinary stories of the war. And most people have never heard of it. A young Navy lieutenant commanded a small wooden patrol torpedo boat in the dangerous waters around the Solomon Islands. One night, a Japanese destroyer cut his boat in half. What happens next will test the limits of human courage, ingenuity, and endurance. This is PT-109. PT boats were small, fast, and fragile. 80 feet of plywood powered by 3 Packard engines. Their job was to attack Japanese shipping at night. 25-year-old Lieutenant John F. Kennedy commanded PT-109 in the waters around the Solomon Islands. It was some of the most dangerous duty in the Navy. On the night of August 1, PT-109 was patrolling Blackett Strait. The crew was watching for Japanese barges and destroyers. At 2 a.m., destroyer Amajiri appeared out of the darkness at 30 knots. There was no time to react. Amajiri slammed into PT-109 amidships, cutting the boat in half. 2 crew members were killed instantly. Kennedy was thrown across the deck. The forward section stayed afloat. 11 survivors clung to the wreckage. Kennedy gathered his crew on the floating bow section. Despite a severely injured back, he took charge. Engineer Patrick McMahon was badly burned. Kennedy grabbed the strap of McMahon's life jacket in his teeth and towed him. Kennedy swam for 5 hours, towing McMahon, to reach a tiny island 3 miles away. He dragged his crew to shore. The island had no food or water. Kennedy carved a message on a coconut shell and gave it to 2 native islanders. The message read, "Noro ISL Commander Native knows POSIT he can pilot 11 alive needs small boat Kennedy." 6 days after the sinking, an Australian coastwatcher organized a rescue. All 11 survivors were saved. Kennedy was awarded the Navy and Marine Corps Medal for his leadership and courage. His back injury would cause him pain for the rest of his life. But he never talked about it as suffering. The coconut shell sat on his desk in the Oval Office when he became president in 1961. Kennedy's PT-109 experience shaped his presidency. When the Cuban Missile Crisis erupted, he remembered what war really meant. The wreck of PT-109 was found in 2002 by Robert Ballard, the same explorer who found the Titanic. Kennedy saved 10 of his 12 crew members after PT-109 was destroyed. His leadership and courage in the Solomon Islands became legendary. The PT-109 incident shaped the man who would become president. Kennedy's wartime experience gave him a deep understanding of the cost of military decisions. The people involved in this story became legends. Their bravery inspired generations. Many of the details remained classified for decades. Only now do we know the full story. Books and films have tried to capture this incredible story. But reality was even more remarkable. The veterans who lived through it rarely spoke about what happened. Some stories are too big for words. This was PT-109, How JFK Survived a Japanese Destroyer. One of the most remarkable stories of the entire war. The events described here shape the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today. The events described here shape the world we live in today.